Hello and welcome to Macro EdTech online educational services. We are going to provide total 5 videos on Union Budget 2024-25, and in today's video we will see budget at a glance. Let's start. Here some key highlights. Total expenditure is estimated to spend around 48 lakh crore in 2024-25. Total receipts are estimated to be 32 lakh crore. Also, the central government will transfer 23 lakh crore to states and UTs. Deficits. In 2024-25, revenue deficit is targeted at 1.8% of GDP. Fiscal deficit is targeted at 4.9% of GDP in 2024-25. And also GDP growth. The nominal GDP is estimated to grow at a rate of 10.5% in 2024-25. First of all, we will see this table, budget at a glance 2024-25, and for reference purpose, we can use actual data for year 2022-23. Now observe carefully this table. You will get revenue expenditure, capital expenditure, total expenditure. Similarly, revenue receipts, capital receipts, and total receipts. Also, you are able to see deficit, revenue deficit, fiscal deficit, primary deficit. In upcoming slides, we will see in a great detail what is revenue expenditure, what is revenue receipts, and what are the deficits. Before going into the detail, you should remember the approx size of GDP. For financial year 2024-25, the size of GDP approximately 325 lakh crore, which is 10 to 11% higher than previous financial years. Also remember one very important point, 1 trillion equal to 1 lakh crore. The receipts that don't create any liabilities and don't lead to a claim on government are called revenue receipts. We can classify into two categories. First, non-tax revenue receipt, and second, tax revenue receipts. First one is non-tax revenue. You can read here interest. Interest is the income received on advances reached out by public authority. Profits, it is the earning earned on values of public undertaking by public authority. Benefits and outside grants, it is a monetary assistance acquired from foreign state-run administration. Second, tax revenue receipts. Now further we can classify tax revenue receipts into two categories, direct tax revenue receipts and indirect tax revenue receipts. You can see here examples of direct tax and indirect tax. But for our discussion, corporate tax and income tax, also known as personal income tax, are important. And similar, in case of indirect taxes, GST is very important. You can read here. In the interim budget presented in February 2024, government raised the target for direct tax collection around 20 trillion, which is equal to 20 lakh crore. While for indirect taxes, including GST, customs and excise, the target was lowered around 15 lakh crore. You can see the trend. Direct tax collection, including personal income tax and corporate tax, is steadily growing for last 3 years. Now you can see the major bifurcation of direct tax. corporate income tax collection for financial year 2023 is around 10 lakh crore, and for personal income tax is around 9 lakh crore. In this slide, you can see GST collection, which is indirect tax. So GST revenue surpasses 20 lakh crore in 2023-24. Now you can see trend in tax receipts. How much contribution of direct tax, indirect tax, and gross tax receipts as a percentage of GDP. If we consider year 22-23, around 6.2% of GDP shared by direct tax and 5.1% shared by indirect tax, and around 11.3% of GDP comes from total or gross tax receipts. You can see here trend in net receipts of center in lakh crore. If we consider year 23-24, around 23.2 lakh crore comes from tax and 3.8 lakh crore come from non-tax revenue and only zero point 0.6 lakh crore come from non-debt capital receipt. In previous slides, we saw tax and non-tax revenue receipts. Now we will see what is capital receipts. Capital receipts are the receipts that create liability or reduce financial assets. They also refer to incoming cash flows. We can classify capital receipts into non-debt capital receipts and debt capital receipts. First of all, we will see examples of non-debt capital receipts like recovery of loans and advances, disinvestment, issue of bonus shares, etc. Similarly, for debt capital receipts, market loans, insurance of special securities to public sector banks, issues of security, short-term borrowings, T-bills, security against small savings, etc. Recently, we discussed revenue receipts and capital receipts. Now you are able to read this table easily. If we consider financial year 22-23, and now we will see the table. First one, tax revenue. Gross tax revenue around 30 lakh crore for financial year 22-23 consists of corporate tax, tax on income, GST, and all kind of taxes. Now after tax collection, gross tax revenue around 30 lakh crore, some amount transferred to states, NDRF, and some adjustment. So total center's net tax revenue around 21 lakh crore. In this slide, you can see here non-tax revenue consists of interest receipts, dividend and profits, external grants, other non-tax revenue, and receipts of Union Territory. Share is very low, around 3 lakh crore. So total revenue receipts around 23 lakh crore. Now capital receipts, first one non-debt receipts and second debt receipts. Share of non-debt receipts is very low, around 72,000 crore, and for debt receipts around 17 lakh crore. So total capital receipts around 18 lakh crore. Now you can add together revenue receipts and capital receipts around 41 lakh crore. And for 2024-25 estimated 46 lakh crore. In this slide, we will see different kind of deficit. First one, fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is the difference between total expenditure and revenue received. Most important point for fiscal deficit, it is a reflective of total borrowing requirement of government. Now, revenue deficit refers to excess of revenue expenditure over revenue receipts. Effective revenue deficit is the difference between a revenue deficit and grant in aid for creation of capital assets. Means we subtract grant in aid portion. And last, primary deficit is a measured as a fiscal deficit less interest. If we have to pay, if government have to pay any interest, so we will reduce it from fiscal deficit. So it's known as primary deficit. In this slide, you can see deficit trends. All the deficit given as percentage of GDP. If we consider year 23-24, fiscal deficit was 5.8% of GDP, revenue deficit was 2.8%, primary deficit was 2.3%, and effective revenue deficit was 1.8%. You can also see the deficit statistics for year 22-23. Fiscal deficit was 6.4% of GDP, around 17 lakh crore. This is indication of borrowing. Second, revenue deficit around 10 lakh crore, effective revenue deficit 7 lakh crore, and primary deficit around 8 lakh crore. Here you can compare revenue and capital receipts. If we consider year 23-24, revenue receipts between 25 to 30 lakh crore and capital receipts between 15 to 20 lakh crore. Trend type questions are very important in competitive examinations. If we consider from financial year 2020-21 to 24-25, you can see here continuously or steadily growth in capital expenditure. So capital expenditure, grant in aid for creation of capital asset, and effective capital expenditure. Let's take year 21-22, 5.9 lakh crore capital expenditure and grant around 2.4 lakh crore. So effective capital expenditure was 8.4 lakh crore. Last two slides based on where does the money come from and where does the money go. We will rotate in clockwise direction, starting with 27% borrowings, and other liabilities. Second, income tax, which is a direct tax. At 18% GST, indirect. Now 17% corporate tax, which is a direct tax. 9% non-tax receipts and other small chunks. 5% union excise duty, 4% custom duty, and some part non-debt receipts. For examination purpose, it is very important to remember direct tax, income tax, and corporate tax around 19 plus 17 around 36% greater than GST, which is 18%. Where does the money go? Again, we will observe this wheel in clockwise direction. Starting with 21%, states share of taxes and duty. Around 21% goes to state share of taxes and duty. States share taxes. Second, interest payment after borrowing. Third one, 16% central sector scheme. Central sector, where 100% funds allocated by central government. Now 9% finance commission and other transfer, 8% to defense, 8% in centrally sponsored schemes where state and central government shared, subsidies, pensions, and some other funds. So major chunk goes in state share and interest payment. Thank you very much. First part is over. You can share your email ID in comment section for the PDF. Subscribe our channel for daily updates.